Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery podcast are proud to bring you Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast. Join your hosts, Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, as they address the real issues in health and wellness for first responders, from physical and mental health to relationships and work-life balance. We leave no stone unturned. Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery answering the call.
Hey everybody, welcome to Answering the Call, First Responders podcast brought to you by Friends in Recovery. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles.
And I'm Jersey Ed.
Yeah, and we have a guest with us today, it's Eric, and we'll get to him in a bit. You have some business first, Ed?
I do. Welcome, Eric, and we will talk to you in a minute. Let's see. Yes, I do. We want to thank Genesis House for sponsoring Answering the Call. Of course, without Genesis House, we cannot do this. They power us. They get us going here and get all this good information out there. Bring us guests like Eric and some of the guests in the past, some of the guests in the future. So thank you, Taylor, and everybody down at Genesis House, and Melissa and Skylar for putting all this together. We're also powered by your likes, follows, subscribes, and shares. Follow us on social media and help us get the word out. And leave a 5-star review. Is that right, Sweets?
All five.
And
you just hit the if you hit the
Yes.
5th star, it just autofills for you. You don't
That's
have to
right.
each one.
That's right.
All the way to the right, hit that star, and it'll.
And
do
that's it. And I think our listeners are getting sick of hearing that now because it's been weeks that we've been saying that. But you think
there
they
are
got
new
it.
listeners. There's new listeners that
There
don't
is.
know,
There
and I want to
is.
make sure they do know.
All
Good
right.
point.
Maybe we should just do a whole tutorial show.
Next
on how
episode.
to, next episode.
Yeah, we'll bring up the screen. We'll share it. And we'll show them exactly how to leave a 5 and to leave a comment. We'll
And a
type it in
comment,
for them.
yeah, leave a
talk
comment.
about how handsome you are.
That's
and
right, that's right.
how tall Mike is.
Can we tell them how to
Make sure-
look on Facebook and social media? Can we tell them? Can we do that
walk
too?
them through it all.
All right, good.
I like that.
All right. Thanks, Sweets.
You got it.
You're
You got
important to us here.
You got it.
And remember, we're always looking for new guest speakers to share their stories. Whatever you're, law enforcement, whatever first responder you are, please get a hold of us. If you have a story you want to tell us, please get a hold of us. You can email us at
You can do this.
I can do it.
I
Help
believe in
at
you.
friends. Did we go through this in another show?
I believe in you. Come on, you can do this. Come on.
Help at friendsinrecoverypodcast.com.
There it is.
go.
Send us an email, and we will get a hold of you, or get us on Facebook, or however you get a hold of us. And that is it. I hate doing that, Mike. Why don't you do that?
I'd be glad to do it.
We'd have 20
You could
minutes
have a
left
monkey
of
do it, and it would be better than what you just did.
I know. You're going to edit all this out, right? Isn't that my famous line? You're going to edit
I'm
all
going
this
to
out.
make your part a little louder so everyone can hear you.
Thanks. Does my microphone look all right?
It looks perfect.
Oh, God. All right. Couple other things. The podcast pick of the week. We do a weekly podcast pick. As long as the podcasts are out there, I'll find them and let you know about them. Today's podcast pick of the week is the Anxiety Guy podcast. Host Dennis Simsek. He speaks about he has great information on anxiety and how to cope with it. There's over 200 episodes, and here's the cool part of it. And not that I'm into these shorter podcasts. I do like a longer podcast myself, but it's 10 to 15 minutes, especially with anxiety. And Mike, Podfather, you can kind of identify with this. Eric,
Certainly.
you probably too. Anxiety, there's only so much I can hear about it, number one, because then I start getting anxiety about it. But he has a lot of good, quick comments and results to kind of get rid of your anxiety and how to process it. So it's a really, really good podcast. I don't listen to it a lot, but I do listen to it when I feel the need of some anxiety. Some anxiety comes on. So, and then last but not least, Mike, we have a Rhode Island Department of Corrections patch.
Nice.
The guys down there gave me the patch a couple weeks ago. We're going to start working with Genesis House is going to start working with their EAP down there. All the guys down there were very receptive. I asked him, and he went and ran and got one and said, "Here you go, Ed." So this isn't going to Wall of Heroes. Thank you guys in the Rhode Island Department of Corrections for that, and you'll see all your patches up on the wall, on our Wall of Heroes. back to you in the studio, Mike.
Hey, it's good to be back. Talking about anxiety and panic, early sobriety wasn't easy, but just when I started getting the program and feeling good about, being sober, I started getting these panic attacks, and they were horrific. I'm telling you, I couldn't drive, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't be in crowded places. I can't remember how many supermarkets I left with a half carriage full of, goods, and I just had to get out of there. I just couldn't handle it. Real scary stuff,
Yeah, anxiety is not fun,
Nope, but I went to see a good doctor at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. His name was Dr. Henry Abraham, and I hope he's doing well because he certainly helped me. It took a while, but anxiety is definitely, I think, it's part of the depression and anxiety go hand in hand with early sobriety. And, because your brain's healing, you're starting to get away from being anesthetized all the time,
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get our next guest in here, and I'm sure he has some, I know him for a long time. We have somewhat of a professional and a personal connection, yes. And I've followed your story since day one, and I remember you when you were a fucking mess,
Oh, yeah.
and
yes,
we're all still a mess, but it's a good mess now.
Yeah.
And you and I go back a while, and I stop at your office every once in a while, and we have some good meetings. We talk on the phone. We support each other. It's good to have a fellow alcoholic addict, on, and there's a reason why you're doing the Answering the Call show also. So, Eric, you want to just kind of introduce yourself and tell us kind of what you do and go from there?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Yeah, my name's Eric Oliveria. I'm a correction officer. What I do now is I work for our employees assistance team, basically, helping our guys, our retirees and their families through whatever stressful situation that they have going on in their lives. A lot of substance abuse, and I do some stuff on the outside too to try to help as many people as I can. The phone rings and it's answering the call. I mean, it's a great title for the show because that's what you have to do. Yeah. Exactly. You know what I mean? You have to pick the phone up when somebody's calling, and no matter what time of the day it is, no matter what time of the night it is, it's doing the next right thing, and that's what I learned. That's what I've learned in programming. Getting back to a little bit about our relationship. When I decided, or when God decided to, then said that young man, you have been overserved and been served long enough. I didn't know you at the time, but you were the person that actually got me down to Genesis House. So I'm forever grateful for that. And then we've formed our relationship over the years with that. And I can't say enough about Genesis House, but we could talk about that.
That's another
time.
show.
Yeah, for sure. Amen. Amen.
Look for him on another show.
Yeah, right.
But we were just talking about anxiety. You and I sit in your office and talk about a couple things, and some of the stuff you tell me what goes on behind those walls, it has to. I mean, I would be drinking and using, and anxiety would be like through the roof. I know Mike was a corrections officer in his before he was a police officer, and some of the stories I hear from you guys, I don't know how you guys do it. I mean, what's your thoughts on? I mean, is there still anxiety? I mean, do you see these guys? What's your thought on it?
Well, yeah. I mean, just think about it for a second. I mean, especially being young. I mean, I started at 25. You what you've seen on TV is not necessarily what happens behind those walls. It's a little bit more, dramatized for movies and whatnot. But then it becomes a reality that you are actually in an extremely dangerous place. And when those gates, you hear those gates slam behind you for the first couple of times walking, maybe not the first couple of times, maybe for years, maybe forever. First of all, this job's not for everybody. Yeah. It's a good paying job. You know what I mean? It's got good benefits, and I think that's the that's the attractiveness. That's the lure to the job. But then it can become a problem, and anxieties, I mean, for sure. I mean, you hear those gates close, and you're in it. I mean, you're in it. I mean, and what you want to do is you want to be able to punch out after your shift. We used to always say, our first job, and I get it. Care, custody, and control of incarcerated inmates is our number one goal. But on a personal level, my number one goal was to make sure that my partner and I walked out safely, and everybody else in that jail, walked out safely. So
But if you guys weren't safe, nobody else was safe then.
Well, right, yeah. I mean, it's a high stressful situation. It's you have to be hyper vigilant. Your adrenaline's always running. Your cortisol levels or whatnot are always up and down. I mean, something pops off, and you're running around doing your job, and then everything's quiet again, and then everything drops. So, the anxieties, and then on top of that, it's just everyday life. You're bringing your own issues from home on top of the stresses of the job. It can create that perfect storm. Then I think that's what we're going to talk about.
You can talk about it again.
I mean, you try to you get some escapes. I mean, people have different ways of dealing with certain situations. I mean, and with me, I mean, my story goes back to when I was a teenager. But if we're just talking about corrections, we tend to have a couple soda pops afterwards when the shit hits the fan, and when something big happens, and then it snowballs quickly. You know what I mean? Especially if you're bringing some stuff from your personal life into it itself.
Well, also some of the stories that we were talking about last time I was with you is that these people are human beings behind bars also.
Absolutely.
But a lot of them are fucking scumbags too. A lot of them probably don't deserve to breathe some of the air that we breathe.
Absolutely.
And you have to protect them.
Yes.
And you have to make sure they're, what did you say at the beginning of the show? Care.
It's care, custody, and control.
Yeah.
And
but these people did some horrible things.
Right on.
And now you have to be the gatekeeper of them to keep them safe. And that has to be anxiety on top of that, number one. And number two, these guys don't give a fuck about you. Would be my guess. They don't care about you. They're in jail. If they kill you, who the fuck cares? They're going to be in jail for the rest of their life anyways. They take you down. Who cares? It's another one they just took down, And so that I couldn't even imagine operating around, because now you got this human being that may or may not want to take you out, and now you have to maybe form a relationship with, because you have to figure out what the fuck they're doing, I'm guessing, in there, and keep an eye on them, be one step ahead of them. Mike, you too. Mike, you've been,
Yeah, it was a lot. I worked back in the 70s. There was very little support for the officers. There was no support, actually. We didn't have anybody to go talk to. You just went in, you did your 8 hours and you left. But the camaraderie, I can honestly say, the friendships that I made in the 14 months that I worked in Barica, those friendships lasted a lifetime. They still go on,
Mm-hmm.
So it was good to have people that had been there for a short time or a long time that would, after work tell you how to deal with some of the situations.
Mm-hmm. So back to that. I mean, it's how do you manage that and kind of work through all that, I guess, is what my question would be.
Well, like Mike said, you do form a relationship, and again, I've worked for 25 years as a correction officer, and I have friendships that I've created and that are still ongoing till this day. Honestly, it's a little bit of support from your coworkers, but you also have to have the outside support. Also, you have to have the support of your family, because I'll be honest with you, we deal with the shit, but if anybody doesn't think that you don't bring that shit home, and that you need, and I'm sorry to say, you need a strong partner, man, woman, whoever you're with, you have to have the support of that person, because without it, now you're going to cause problems from your personal life, and then you're going to bring that back into the jail. Right. So now you're getting whacked. You know what I mean? You're getting sucker punched from both sides. So, a lot of the, unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, I think it's just human nature sometimes to go to something that makes you feel comfortable. And a lot of times, because the way the society is, and it's always been like this, that alcohol was always that thing. You know what I mean? And it still is to this day. It makes people relax. It takes the edge off. And then
25 years ago 25 years ago you said you started?
Yeah.
Okay. So 25 years ago when you started, it was probably acceptable. Not like today. There was probably no EAP or any peer support way back when. It was, okay, let's go get a drink. We had a tough day. We beat the shit out of 3 guys. I got my ass kicked, and let's go get a drink. And that's probably how it went. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Always. I mean, the place, we'll shout out to Concord. There was a place in the parking lot that we called it the Grassy Knoll, and you know what I mean. And that's where we used to unwind. You know what I mean. That's where we used to unwind after a big event. And it helped. Yeah. But the issues with like the depression too is, it's fair to say that prison breeds negativity. It's a negative place. Mm-hmm. It's the same sounds. It's the same loud banging, same colors, same smells, same the chance of you not going home, or the chance of somebody not going home, or the chance of somebody getting hurt. That's every single day that you walk into that place, and you do get complacent after a little while. You know what I mean? And it becomes normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that normal? I don't know if it is or not. But those stressful situations that once occurred when you were maybe a rookie or younger, they're not that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah. Well, you get tough skin to it, you get complacent to it, and it's your job. Listen, my job is my job. I love my job, actually.
You're good at it.
Well, thanks. Yeah. But the thing is that you get to know your job, and okay, it's I don't know if my job is a good kind of way to talk about it, but you just go do your job. I think we were talking on another podcast about baseball players. You just go out, do your job, and that's it, and you kind of get it going, and that's kind of what you do in corrections. But you have some really bad people behind those walls.
Right on.
You're really bad people.
Yeah,
and a couple other things, and Podfather, when we talk about you getting in a cruiser, you go to a scene of a crime or whatever, or you help somebody out, you get in your cruiser and you go. You guys have to be in that wall. You have to be in there. You can't drive away from the scene. You can't drive away from anything. You're behind those walls. You see the guys in the same old color uniforms. They all look the same because they have all the same clothes on. They eat at the same time. Everything is and that repetition just must drive people insane, that work there.
Well, yeah, again, it becomes routine and becomes monotonous, and at times you may let your guard down because it's just like, if nothing's happened in a little bit of time or whatever, and you let your guard down, and that's usually when something pops off. And just to touch on, the Podfather and what he does for a living, I can't tell you how many police officers that I've talked to that said I would never want to do your job.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, let me explain something. I wouldn't want to do their job either. I mean, we have what we have in jail, weapons, all the bad guys, the drugs and whatnot. But we, God forbid, since the Sousa Baranowski incident at Norfolk, we don't have firearms being shot at. So with all big kudos to the police officers, because again, we deal with, I guess, the worst of society, I guess you call them. Now, in saying that, yeah, there's some bad dudes in jail that deserve to be in jail.
Yep.
And by no means am I a concoddle, and I might get some flack from my the guys that I work with this, but only because I know what I know and what's affected me in my own personal life. I don't know the percentages, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say there's a high percentage of the guys that are in jail because they're feeding their addiction.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
And we've talked about that.
Yeah. So I'm not coddling cons, but I'm also not going to sit here and tell you that everybody that's in jail is a fucking scumbag.
No,
they're
no.
not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
People make wrong choices. People do stupid things.
Right.
Sweets, you were on the opposite side of where Eric was. What's your thoughts on some of this? Being an inmate.
Well, I mean, I was in a similar position, to what Eric was saying, is that, once you get in and those doors close behind you, you're there. You live there. That's your world. I met, I hate to say it, I met some of the best people I've ever met in there.
Yeah.
I've also met some of the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a pretty mixed bag. There's a lot of people who, catch a tough break. I had a lot of friends who were corrections officers that were working at the same facility that I was at. And I would go in and, we would shake hands, quietly so no one could see it, obviously. But we would do the nod or whatnot, and what's up. And I mean, the only difference between me and him is that I got caught.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, and I mean,
Absolutely.
we were just people, and I just happened to be in there, and his job was to make sure I was safe while I was in there, and I had respect for him, and he had respect for me, and we still knew each other on the outside. So I mean, there are good people who make mistakes that end up in there, and I think, to your point, Eric, it's great that there are good-hearted people, not necessarily con coddlers, but people who actually see these as human
Absolutely.
beings and know that. I don't know what the percentage is. We could make up a number. It's arbitrary, but that there's a percentage of people in there who are just looking for a safe trip through their experience.
Sure.
And,
And I can tell you, I had a training officer named Charlie McKenna, and he passed away. He's a big guy. But when I first started there, I just remember him taking all us new correctional officers, there was 13 of us, and telling us all one afternoon that, hey, any one of us could be in here, try to have some respect.
Yeah.
This was back in 78.
Yeah.
Try to have some respect, because you know what? There are people in here that you're going to know, and you just do your job, and you don't. The biggest sin you can commit while you're a correctional officer is bringing anything into jail. Right, Eric?
Absolutely.
I'm talking a newspaper,
That's it.
a
Really?
comic book.
Really?
Yeah, that's
You
it.
can't bring
once you
anything
start
in.
that relationship,
Right.
it's over.
Can't do it.
And that was advice that we got. But hey, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back. This is Answering the Call, First Responders Podcast. I am the Podfather.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. The First Responder Recovery Program at Genesis House is led by a doctorate-level therapist with direct professional experience as a first responder himself. Treatment modalities focus on psychiatric care, relapse prevention, stress management, and trauma-informed care for PTSD. Learn why their individualized approach makes a difference for first responders. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Answering the Call, First Responder Podcast, brought to you by Friends in Recovery. And I am the Podfather. We're here with Jersey Ed
Hi, guys.
and Eric.
Eric
how are you?
Oliveria.
Very good.
Oliveria.
Oliveria, yeah, very good. Nice to be here, fellas.
Yeah, it's nice having you here.
Yeah.
We're really enjoying your presence here and some of the stories you're relaying to us, because a lot of people, when a cop goes to work, the neighbors, he might come home in his cruiser or she might come home in a cruiser. They know what they do. But when a correctional officer leaves for work, nobody knows what you do. They have no idea what you're doing at work. They don't see you. You don't discuss it. You go home, and you're in your little sanctuary. Usually hang around with other correctional officers. Your neighbors are just somebody that know that you do something. They don't know what you do. In your case, you were a correctional officer. Working the tiers and working with cons and everything. But now you're the EAP. Is that correct?
That is
Employee
correct.
Assistant
Yep.
Professional.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that.
A couple of years ago, I got on. It was something that interested me. I've been in recovery for a little bit now, and I just kind of wanted to give back. I saw a lot of our guys suffering. I suffered with them. I mean, some of those guys, I guess I could use the term partners in crime. And I just know that there was a lot of hurt going on in the department. Substance abuse, alcoholism. Other things also, and I just kind of wanted to give back, so I applied. I interviewed well, and they hired me.
Nice.
Right time for the right guy for the right time.
Yeah, but
for the
Eric,
right
you
job.
worked hard for that job, though. You had a lot of years' experience that you worked hard up to getting that
Yeah.
job, and then you came through Genesis House.
Yes.
You're okay with me saying that?
Oh,
obviously,
absolutely,
right?
yeah. I'm an
You
open
came-
book. Ask me whatever you want.
That's right.
As long as I don't get in trouble.
Well, this is an airing. Nobody's
Yeah,
going to
I
see
know,
this.
right.
But you came through Genesis House,
I
and
did.
you improved your life. And the next thing I know, I get a phone call from one of your staff, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's with us now." I'm like, "Are you
Yeah,
fucking kidding
yeah,
me?"
right on,
That
right on.
guy didn't even want to go to treatment. He didn't even know his name
Yeah,
last time I spoke to him,
right.
and now he's So this is what recovery does. This is what
Absolutely.
reaching out does. This is what EAP programs do.
Right.
And we have a lot of people that listen out there, and it's great to hear the stories about what goes on behind the walls. But I think the most important part of this is the story, like how is somebody listening out there now, maybe they need help, maybe a corrections officer that gets stuck behind that wall, that's in his or her own prison. in their addiction, how do they get out of it? And how did you get out of it? Maybe that might be the best way of kind of.
Well, most people in recovery, all people in recovery, or maybe even need recovery, know that one of the hardest things to do is to ask for help, and especially if you're in law enforcement. You know what I mean? Because we're supposed to be, tough and
you're the helper.
badass.
You're the helper.
You know what I mean? And you don't want to seem weak, especially in a prison setting. You know what I mean? You definitely don't want to seem like you're weak. So internally you're struggling. So yeah, you're right. But getting back to the way that guys can get help with this particular team. First and foremost is we do have websites, and we have on our internal intranet system with the department with all our phone numbers on there, and we get out there to be seen. You may be able to relate to me where you might not be able to relate to Mike.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you kind of form a connection. You might be like, that's the guy I need to talk to. So you might call me personally on the side, but we have a referral system. The Department of Corrections has come so far when it comes to calling for others. You know what I mean? We get countless and countless calls from guys that they don't have the problem. One of their guys do, or just somebody that they know in the prison that hey, can you give him a call? He seems like he's a little off. So we're finally looking out for each other.
Right.
Where back in the day you didn't. Right. You just didn't. I mean, you know what I mean? And again, because that big bad correctional, and I'll just speak for corrections and not police, because Mike, that's your lane, is that we're supposed to be strong, and we can't ask for help. So we're getting guys calling up, and girls calling up on for each other. Right. You know what I mean? We're back in the day, that'd be almost like ratting somebody out.
Yeah. Right.
The times have changed, folks. Yep. Times have changed.
For the better, too.
100% for the better. I mean, we couldn't do what we do without other people calling up for other people. And you know what that tells me? That tells me that people are actually starting to fucking give a shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Where and it's like the shit that's I get a little passionate about this stuff, but it's like the shit that's going on now with the opiates. It's something that we've never seen before. I've watched you guys on the podcast, and you guys were talking about, like, back in the day, Mike, when you saw heroin used, you was like, he was a dirty dude. Well, let me tell you something. And I've learned this at Genesis House, and you mentioned this too. The shit don't discriminate. Black, white, man, girl, lawyers, judges, fucking, it doesn't matter anymore, man. Everybody's hooked on this shit, and we all know why. So I think the stigma of opiates, heroin, has kind of, sorry to say, but I'm not sorry to say, it's kind of risen to the same level as alcohol. You know what I mean? It's like alcohol was accepted. Nowadays, doing heroin's accepted.
You're
sorry
right.
to say, but it is.
You're right.
You know what I mean? It's like I'm going out to do a couple bumps in my car, before you're like, I ain't hanging around with that guy. But but getting, sorry to get off track.
No.
But I mean,
you're right on track.
Yeah, you're right on track.
But,
absolutely.
Getting back to how we can help guys is, we have a duty station that's open 24/7. There's a hotline. You know what I mean? There's always somebody there that will reach out to one of us. That and then we're on it. It's like a 911.
Yeah.
So it's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah. All of our phone numbers are all listed.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many countless calls I got from your team at not during the day, at night. 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
It's not, you guys are on 24/7. Somebody's there to answer
Christmas,
24/7.
Thanksgiving. It is what it is. You know what I mean? If you take this position, you know that. You know what I mean? We're here to help people. This isn't just a kickback job. You know what I mean? These people's lives depend on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough that when I was going through what I was going through, a good friend of mine had contacted this particular unit, and that unit contacted you, that particular individual contacted you, and then you got me down to Genesis House. You know what I mean? And that's how it worked. And like I said, that I just passed my 5-year anniversary last Tuesday.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
Wow, congratulations!
So 5 years ago, there were guys looking out for each other. Where again, back in the day,
10 years, even 10 years ago,
it wasn't.
It wasn't going on.
And I'm not saying that that things have just changed for the better.
Yeah.
I'll kind of leave it like that when it comes to the team.
No,
Well, it's good to see that. It's good to see that the administration has been able to step up and say, you know what, it's just not. We're not just here to care for the inmates. We're here to, also to care for the officers, because there's no, the Department of Justice did a study, Eric. I'm pretty sure you're aware. In 2017, they finished it. I was working at the Sheriff's Department in Middlesex I was the EAP for 3.5 years. I didn't get the contract again when they redid it, and I understand why. But I can honestly say I have no animosity or anger at all, because what I saw, what Peter Katusian was doing for his officers, to me, it just touched my heart. CISM courses, being able, I'd have to speak to the superintendent sometimes to say, hey, so-and-so needs to get some help. All they really cared about was that person got help. Years ago, it would have been a different ballgame. There's a lot of politics, like back when I was a young guy and I was a correctional officer. It just seems like it's going in a better direction. Number one in suicide, correctional officers. Number one in divorce, correctional officers. Those stats are real. They're not my stats. They're not your stats. They're from the Department of Justice after extensive surveys and interviews. So, we got to change that. The average life expectancy of a male is about 79. Because of the opioid epidemic, it was almost 81. Now it's gone down. The average life expectancy of a correctional officer is 59. That's 20 years.
Jesus.
You're giving us a couple years.
Yeah.
They say 18 months after our retirement. I mean, that is what it is.
That's right. Right. And you want to get to your retirement. And there's another thing, too. You guys can retire after 50% after 20 years, which, a lot of guys, they want out, and girls, they want out. They don't want to do it no more because it's a very toxic, very difficult job. However, it's not. It'd be nice if you could stay 30 years and get a nice retirement. And I think 10, 15 years from now, we might see that. It's in the early stages now where they're out. People like yourself, that go out and help other officers, because who else are you going to trust? You're not going to trust a therapist who sits in her office who has chimes and Japanese sayings, and you go in and she doesn't shave her legs,
stuff?
And and
Mike's office is filled with that.
But live, love, laugh.
Right. Live, love, laugh. Yeah. But they are going to trust someone like yourself. You're a rough and tumble guy. You've been there. You not only did you're probably a great correctional officer, but you're a great officer, and you're a rough and tumble guy. You've been through the ropes. You've had an addiction. You fought it. You beat it. That statistic right there is about 3% of people actually get sober, actually can contribute to society. That's not a great percentage, 3%, but that's what we're looking at. Yeah. So who are they going to trust? You or somebody that works for a facility that has a 9 to 5
or the
job.
800 number on the back of a card.
Right.
That fucking kills me when you call your 800 number on the back of a card. Let me ask this: would you have called your 800 number on the back of your card?
Never.
Absolutely not.
It's insane, right? I mean, it's crazy. The statistic that Mike brings up about the suicide and the divorce. We know that you reached out to your program 5 years ago for your addiction, but you guys just don't work with addiction. You do a little bit of everything, right? I mean,
everything.
Mental health, behavioral, whatever it is, you're there for that officer if he or she has any kind of problem.
Any type of that's absolutely fair to say.
Because I just don't want to segregate you
to substance abuse and all. Right. Just to touch what Mike said. And Mike, you're 100 the Podfather. I like that, by the way. You're 100% correct. And I do give a lot of props and kudos out to administration now, because you know what, we're getting calls from superintendents now for guys where you would never see that before.
Correct.
The department has taken huge steps into to caring for their officers now. Where again, I can only speak for myself. This isn't anything against the department or anything like that. But back in the day, it was a little bit different.
Sure.
Now Mike. I'm glad you kind of brought that up. I hope I wasn't going to miss that part of it, because they've done an unbelievable job. Just putting this team together. Back in the day, there was only 3 or 4. Now there's 11 of us.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So they're throwing money at this thing. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not to shy away from trying to say anything about administration or whatnot, but it's come a long, long way. And thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
But back
years ago, you guys had to fight administration. I mean, Mike, you tell stories all the time that not only do you have to fight everybody on the street. You have to go in and then fight administration. When you got sober 35 years ago, that was a bad thing. A cop having an addiction problem. I mean, a couple friends, Brian Fleming from the Boston Police Department. He's retired now, but he had a killer fight to get his job back all those years ago. Now, I don't want to say it's acceptable, but we look at it differently, and administration is not putting that kind of pressure on. Okay, well, they have teams like you have, Eric, and they get everything to they want everybody to be healthy. Because here's the shitty part of it: they fire you, they catch you 5 years ago because you were doing what you're doing. You have 20 years in. Now they got to hire some kid.
Exactly.
That they have to retrain.
Exactly.
Training guys cost a lot of fucking money. Man.
Amen.
It's not cheap. Just because you're up and you're at a higher pay scale, that's going to blow that through the roof.
Right.
And let's help these guys. Any
that's what
responder,
they want. They want us to be productive employees. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Any employer
they
wants
have
that.
an investment in us, and you know what? And it's our job to give them some return on that investment. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Getting back to like the services that we provide. I mean, it is an A to Z thing. You know what I mean? I mean, it goes all the way from, all the substance abuse and in the recovery world, but it also goes all the way down to for real, this might sound a little weird, but I mean, like if you don't have a vehicle to get your son or daughter or yourself to an appointment, we'll bring you. Yeah. I mean, if it's going to cause you to have some type of stress and send you down a road that that might lead and just start to snowball, we're there to help. You know what I mean? We're there to help for anything.
It's a more caring environment because we know nowadays that you guys as employees are well worth putting this extra department together for. And listen, you were from what it sounds like and all the stories you tell me, you were probably an amazing corrections officer, but now they had to take you out of behind the walls and put you into another position. They're still paying you for whatever you're doing now what you're doing, and then you had to fill somebody else in that position. Right. But these guys are understanding that with your experience and what's going on, this department's going to help those new guys or those guys are behind the wall, and whatever it is, if it's divorce, if it's whatever, just having a bad day. I mean, that's what they can call you for. Now, I'm not just talking about this particular state and your particular unit. This goes across the country. I mean, this is not just because we're here and this is what we're talking about. If you're in Arizona, if you're in California, if you're a corrections officer in Pennsylvania, they still have these privileges, I'm guessing, right? I mean, not for you to do it, but within their own systems.
Truth be told, there's really not a lot of teams in other states that do what we do. Okay. Boston PD is the one that kicked this thing off through the whole country. They came up with the original stress unit. You know what I mean? We're fortunate just to live in the same state, so we could piggyback off it. Right. We have different states calling us all the time. We have guys flying in from California just to see what we do because they need to do something out there to take care of their guys. You know what I mean?
I'm going to meet your former boss next week. Remember?
Down in Connecticut.
Down in Connecticut.
Yeah,
yes.
right on.
When they told, I'm just trying to dance a little bit.
Yeah. No,
but
she's good people.
Yes, she is. I love her, and she did wonders for your department. She bumped that department up to amazing. Yep. It's amazing what she did for that department. But when they told me there was no EAP with you guys, and she's going to start it, I was like, "Are you out of your fucking mind?"
Right on.
She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "They want to kind of imitate what's happening up here in Massachusetts."
As I mentioned, I mean, Connecticut, right down the street, right? They don't have us.
Nope.
They don't have a team.
No, they don't.
There are states. I mean, just think about some of the smaller states. I know we live in the Northeast, and we're all this, Boston crap, New York crap. But I mean, just think about like the Mississippis and the Tennessees, and I'm not saying anything about those states, but we have different, representatives from correction facilities. Like I said, flying out here just to watch us, to see what we do, and they're trying to take that stuff back and form their own, just like Connecticut was doing. You know what I mean?
A couple of years ago, not to interrupt you, but a couple of years ago, a guy came up from Texas. He was a sheriff. He had the cowboy hat and the boots, and he was a very impressive dude. He was kind of as big as Sweet, and he was walking around with the superintendent out at Billerica, and he was so taken by not so much the corrections part of corrections, but of how the officers were being cared for and tended to and given these opportunities. And, I had an opportunity to speak with him several times in 2 days, and he was blown away. He could not take enough notes. He was inviting people to come down and talk to his superior officers, and to me, for a guy I'm 65 years old. I got involved in corrections when I was 23, and then I became a cop when I was 25. So I've been in law enforcement a long time, but and then I've been recovering a long time. So to be part of that, and Eddie Donovan, Boston Stress Unit, I met him. I sat in a meeting in Jamaica Plain with him. I mean, he was it. There was no one else. He was it. And I mean, I feel proud to know that I'm part of something. I've been part of something that's going to improve the lives of not just the officers, but their family members as well. Because I'm sure you deal with families, family members as well, right?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, the families.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there was a stretch, and it has started to calm down a little bit, that we were taking more. And again, I know this is going to sound about the substance abuse, but we were taking more of our employees' children
for help
than we were our own.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's sad.
Yeah.
It's true, though. It's true.
Yeah, but it come back to what you said at the beginning of the show. Opiates are acceptable now. Opiates are okay.
We didn't have that.
No.
We didn't have all that.
No.
All this junk. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't nowhere near.
Yeah.
The system wasn't flooded like it is now. You know what I mean? Especially with the pills and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, but we're taking a lot of our guys and gals, kids, and again, we will help anybody. Listen, off the books. I know this is being filmed. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to take care of correction officers, retirees, and their families. Mm-hmm. If somebody's out there and they got a friend or somebody that they know that needs help, call me.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It is what it is.
That's the gratitude of giving back in this program, and we all have that. We're all four of us sitting here. We all are recovering, and we know what it is to be empathetic and understanding, and and to be generous with our time. Because Sweets and I were talking earlier about, he has a business, I have a business. I don't always get paid in my business. I've worked with people that are homeless, and I know they have no means. I don't turn them away. I do what I can do because I really believe helping someone, and I'm sure we all agree, helps us.
Yeah.
Oh, it has to.
And guys,
paying it forward.
You guys have to, and we spoke about this on previous shows. You guys are human beings first, then you're a corrections officer or a police officer or a first responder, and we have to remember that because we can't push our human being selves away, and our human being selves, especially us in recovery that works a strong program, we want to help other people, and it doesn't matter if you're black, white, green, red, corrections officer, a bum in the street, or a producer behind a microphone. That's you, Sweets. We want to help people, Right. We really do, and I understand exactly what you're talking about. I cannot understand anything you talked about being behind the wall. I don't get it, but that last statement that you made, I understand 100%. Right. I would fucking pick up that phone anytime, and you know that. You called me before. Yeah. I would pick up that phone, and I would help anybody at any fucking time. My phone is right next to my bed. I sleep next to it. If it rings, I can guarantee you at 2 o'clock in the morning, it probably have to ring a few times, but I'll answer it, and that's what we do.
That's right.
It's been a great show. Eric, thanks for coming on.
It's my pleasure.
It's been great. Ed, you get anything else?
No, I'm just, I every time I do have to say, Eric, every time I go to your office or I get a phone call from you, I mean, this guy texts me at 12:30 at night on New Year's Eve. I'm like, holy shit. Wow. I mean, 5 years ago or 25 years ago for me, I'd be like, fuck you. I'm out fucking partying. What the fuck am I getting a call from you for? But I was impressed that you text me.
Yeah.
I was impressed that
I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for you. Honestly, seriously, not just you, but for a lot of people. But you're one of them.
Yeah. Well, we guide everybody, and you do the same thing. You guide people into where they need to be, whatever it is, and that's what I'm here. I'm just a vehicle to help somebody get to where they need to be. You've done all the work, not me. I can't take credit for your recovery at all, but I will help. I will take the credit that I did guide you somewhere.
Yes, you did.
but thank you, Eric. It's always a pleasure.
My
always a pleasure seeing you, and always a pleasure spending time with you.
A real pleasure, Eric. Thanks for coming on the show. Answering the Call, First Responders Podcast, brought to you by Friends in Recovery.
Stay safe, everybody.
That concludes this episode of Answering the Call, the First Responder Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for sponsoring the show and supporting our first responders who are struggling with addiction and mental health. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates. If you are interested in becoming a guest on the show, email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com.